Don't miss this one. Today we're going to take a closer look at the General's Handbook, the most eagerly anticipated release for Age of Sigmar in the past year. Spiky Bits.
Make sure you stay in the trenches by becoming a supporter over on Patreon and also scoring yourself some free miniature swag in the process. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out our site, spikybits.com, for all the hot hobby tutorials, news, rumors on all your favorite hobby topics. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.
Well, this is it. The brand new supplement for Age of Sigmar, probably the most eagerly awaited release in the past year for the fledgling brand, I suppose. It's the General's Handbook, aka the General's Compendium of the old fantasy yesteryear. And man, this thing is full of fire. This is the fire right here. If you play Age of Sigmar, well, you have three different... well, I guess technically two other ways to play Age of Sigmar now, based on the stuff in this volume here. But also, maybe more importantly, it gives us a baseline to play, I guess, some more matched games, so to speak, because there's points cost in here for everything, including the battalion, the Warhost battalions, right? So not only do the units have points, but if you want to take the accompanying battalion, that has a point as well, because they all have extra special rules. So let's take a closer look at this thing. Now, this is a preview copy for the pre-release of the new, basically, campaign and such that's sweeping around. You'll probably see a lot of these in stores. The actual release date is not known. I imagine it's going to be around the middle of July. So this is a preview copy. We're not gonna break it down. I'm not going to show you every page. You're not going to be able to be like, hey, I play dwarves or Durden. You know, I want to see all their points. You can find that online. We're just going to talk about basically what's going on in here, you know, if it's a good buy, whether you should pick it up, or, you know, just some general random thoughts and previews of the book itself. Now, I can tell you right now, if you play Age of Sigmar, you're going to want this book. But what it doesn't do is, it doesn't replace all the other supplements that are out there. Like, you know, you're going to need all your war tomes, or battle tomes rather, because that has your actual war scrolls in it for all of the units. The only thing this has pertaining to each unit is the points for those units themselves. So it's kind of cool in that regard that they're basically giving us a new mode of play, but it also requires you to have this book and the existing book, or the free online war scrolls that Games Workshop has on their site. But again, they're not all on there because, you know, they've rebranded a lot of you know, particular units, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's already been a year, right? So but there are points in here still for, like, say, the Lizardmen or something. You know, there's still points in here for Wood Elves. You want to play the Sisters of Twilight on, you know, the Wood Elf Dragon, whatever it's called, I forget. But yeah, that's in here. There's the points. You can still do it. So they didn't get rid of anything. You can still play with all of your models, even in the new pitch battle kind of format, which is the points cost. So all those caveats aside, let's take a closer look. Now, Games Workshop preview the new contents right here. We've seen all this, but what we didn't know is all the specifics and what it all really meant, per se, right? So here's the contents. We got open play games, and open play is basically what Age of Sigmar is right now. It's just, hey, yo, you want to play Age of Sigmar? Yeah, dog. All right, cool. I'm going to play demons. All right, I'll play dwarves. All right, cool. See you at this store. And you just bring all your stuff out and you put it all on the table and you go at it. Not exactly the best way to go about things, right? Sometimes. But what's cool about this is they introduced multiplayer games, and you'll probably notice some terms when we flip over there that are very familiar to a lot of old fantasy players, or converts, I suppose. So we're going to see that. So that's kind of cool that you can do multiplayer games, because a lot of the fun of fantasy was actually playing, you know, multiplayer games, maybe like a siege game, trying to take over a castle or something like that. So that's really exciting, you know, allowing players to continue to forge those narratives and have fun like that. Then they got the narrative play games, which aren't necessarily always army versus army. You can have a monster versus an army, or, you know, a couple of, like an invading force of a couple of little war bands trying to break out against the whole army, and they get a bunch of bonuses. So they're more like themed games, and they kind of tell you in the little battle plan thing how to go about constructing your army. So it's not exactly wide open like Age of Sigmar is right now, or like Unbound 40K, for instance. It's more hey, this is your guidelines. It's what you call guidelines, right? So I don't know why I did Dr. Evil. I'm not supposed to be Barbarossa. But anyways, so there's a ton of those in here, tons of stuff. A lot of narrative battles, which you would come to expect from, Age of Sigmar and basically what's going on and all the new history in the Mortal Realms and kind of the old history and the old, I guess a rivalry, so to speak. And then they get into the match play game section, which match play is what probably interests a lot of folks out there, judging by the public response and things over the past year or so, right? So you've got pitch battles. And there's battle plans for each of these. And all pitch battles it's basically Age of Sigmar with points. All your stuff has points now. Everything has a points cost. And there's specific points cost armies. And we'll get into those too, because there's 3 different types. And you can use all of these battle plans for that, right? And then there's pitch battle profiles, which is basically like kind of like, what do they call them? Well, I'll just get to that when we get there, right? So then you get to the back, and that's your army roster, and then which is basically where all the rules and everything start, and then you get into your allegiance abilities, and that's basically like the opposite of allies. That's currently out there in like 40k. You can take an ally, and there's a force org chart, and then you can have one formation or this and that, or you can have a detachment, blah 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 blah. And to be honest, 40k wise, it's quite clunky. I think we can all agree. There's a lot of rules in play. There's, people are winning tournaments with illegal army lists. And to be quite honest, I don't even know what to say about that, because it's a lot of stuff to memorize. It's a lot of stuff that you literally have to study it. Well, what's different about this is that they reward you for basically taking all of one faction. Like you want to go, order. You want to go all Stormhost. Boom. You get those abilities. You want to go all chaos. There's basically a few little guidelines on how to do it, but the benefits are almost worth it. And what I like about it is it kind of keeps things streamlined for an edition that's already basically a year old, and now it's just getting a tweak. So I don't know, what do you want to call this? 1.5, I guess, basically, so to speak. So a great supplement. I think a lot of people are going to want it for sure. But let's take a closer look at a lot of things. There's great new artwork in here. It's laid out. It's a 166-page book. It's soft cover. I don't know whether they did that to keep costs low, or they just figured a lot of people would be buying it, whatever, no big deal. But the good news is that, like I said, you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to get the battle tomes to play with your points, or to have your points, right? So there's, like I said, many phases of war, using it to time of war rules here, and then starts getting into, spectacular graphics. The art team, they outdo themselves every time, every new book I see. That piece of artwork, wow, right? That's just spectacular. I love that piece. That's probably my new favorite piece of art of all time right there. So multiplayer rules. So you got the Coalition of Death, where basically you have 2 sides, or like a team of players, and then that's all these rules right here. And then you have Triumph and Treachery, right? Where that's basically just like the old Triumph and Treachery rules or supplement for fantasy, where you can have multiple sides, and you pass around the coins, and you make secret allegiances, and stab people in the back, and there were scenario cards, and it was pretty neat. So here's some of the battle plans. Like I said, there's a ton of battle plans in here, very specific ones. These ones are just kind of wide open, because this is the wide open format. So they give you all that, and then we get, like I said, there's a ton of stuff in here. And then it goes into the narrative play, which, like I said before, this is basically, they tell you a specific way to play. Like, for instance, the first little battle plan here, Raging Fury, is a monster versus an army, basically. And then they give the monster, it's basically Godzilla. It's Godzilla coming to Age of Sigmar. So they basically give the monster a bunch of good rules. And, it might work, it might not, but it's something funsy, because you're going to spend 130 or 150 bucks on a monster. Why the heck not? Play him against the whole army. See how long you can last. See what damage you can do. See if you can win. I don't know. It's just something fun to do, That's what's cool about all of these rules in here. So there's a ton of these types of different rules where it's, they give you the specific thing, like you got to go rescue guys, or you got to break out, you got to invade. And there's a lot of narratives and things in here. It's really dope. And then it gets to the back section here, where it talks more about campaigns. And there's a whole Path to Glory campaign in here too, which isn't the first time we've heard of that, right? So Path to Glory is basically, you kind of create a warband, and it kind of like snowballs, and you get all these benefits and things like that. Now, it isn't the matched play, so you don't have points values per se, but you could easily do that. You could say, hey, we're going to use the Path to Glory system, with the match play kind of rules and go from there. You know what I mean? So this is a really great kind of baseline to do all sorts of different things to expand on. And it's not, like I said, it's not just one mode of play anymore. It's 3 different modes of play. And, like I said, a lot of people are sure gonna look closely at the points ones, but there's still some other, there's still like 130 other pages in here full of great content, I feel like, that shouldn't be overlooked. So then you got the Chaos Warband tables, and you can roll on specific things, basically, depending on what you take and what you can do. And they give you kind of ideas, or excuse me, there's a rewards table here. These give you guidelines on what you can field and things like that. And then there's more rewards, and they tell you what you can roll on here, and then you basically get into all that, and you just level up all your stuff. It's pretty neat. I kind of dig it. I think it's a cool little system. And then we get to, and then there's even more narrative stuff, all sorts of, it's so much packed in here. It's like impossible to like, they have, like I said, they have the Path to Glory, and then they got Matrix campaigns. It's just so much stuff. But what I think the bulk of people watching this video will probably be interested in is the match play. And now a lot of this is already, been online. People got their books early, whether they, helped out or they're at stores taking pictures or whatever it may be. But the long story short is, there is balance to the Force again, you know what I mean? Without killing all the Jedi and all the younglings and everything. It's gonna be good. This quite possibly is the Age of Sigmar we've all been waiting for. And I'll tell you what, it'll be nice to see, more games getting played on the tabletop, because that's just, we're all nerds. We all rise with the tide. Being a nerd is mainstream now, and it's just really neat to see Games Workshop, really coming out with the supplement and basically allowing or listening to the community, I guess, that response that we really haven't seen in a good 15 years or so. So there's a segment in here about playing in clubs, and it's just really good stuff here. And doing a ladder campaign, it's the third type of campaign you can do in here, and this is specifically for the matched scenarios and stuff. Then it talks about tournament games and using these in tournament games, which obviously very easy to do, right? So then we get to the actual part that a lot of people haven't seen yet, probably, is the pitch battles. And these are the actual rules. This is your force organization, if you will, for Warhammer, borrowed from Warhammer 40K. This is how you use the things that you have now, and what they count as, and how many you can field for certain things. So there's 3 different types of games. There's Vanguard, Battle Host, and War Host, and a specific game length time. There's also a specific size of table you play on: 4x4 for Vanguard, 6x4 for Battle Host, which is traditional, and 8x4 for War Host games, with 1 or 2 terrain features in each 2x2 square area of the battlefield. Okay, good guidelines, right? Because you want to have stuff to move around. But then there's a whole bunch of other caveats in here that, because remember, Age of Sigmar is like freaking wide open, man. You know what I mean? Like, you can just take whatever. Things can stack. You can cast multiple copies of spells. Things can be towing in terrain and getting cover saves and yada, 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 yada. So there was changes need to be made right off the bat for balance. If you're bringing balance, you got to bring the whole nerf bat. You know what I mean? Like, you got to bring it all in. And I like their due diligence here on what they did. They have the 3 rules of 1. The first rule of 1 is a spell can only be attempted once per turn rather than once per wizard per turn. Okay? Very cool. The second rule of 1, a roll of 1 to hit, wound, or save always fails. This applies to the roll after any rerolls have been taken, but before modifiers are applied. Okay? So you can get to a 1-up, but you have to do it via a modification, which shouldn't be any, stranger to any fantasy player out there, right? You just, natural ones always fail, which same 40K, right? That can lead to a lot of abuse. The third rule of 1 is any extra attacks, hits, or wounds gained by the use of an ability cannot themselves generate extra attacks. So you can't go infinite, guys. I mean, maybe Korn should a little bit every now and then, but nobody else. So those are really good baselines there as well. Now, something else. It's not on this page. We'll get to it. Okay, so battlefield rolls. This is basically how many points you have here, and this is your 3 types of battles: your Vanguard, your Battle Host, and your War Host, right? So you got 1,000 points, 2,000 points, 2,500 points. Very, very familiar to a lot of fantasy players, I'm imagining. So you've got leaders, which are, you can have 1 to 4 in a Vanguard, 1 to 6 in a Battle Host, and 1 to 8 in a Warband. And leaders are designated basically back here in this section, where this is, well, we'll do Skaven, sure. This isn't the Age of Sigmar versions. The Age of Sigmar versions are on the front here. But regardless, so you got Deathmaster Sneak, and he is a leader, of course. So there you go. Now you can kind of understand how that is. Like I said, War Scroll battalions have a points cost as well, so that's important to note. So you got battle lines here. You got artilleries. Then you've got monsters. I wanted to find an example of a monster, but I'm sure you can imagine what a monster is in Age of Sigmar, right? So then you've got battle lines, which are 2+, 3+, 4+, which are basically your, troops, so to speak, etc., etc. Artilleries, which come with the crew for free. Behemoths, excuse me, they're not monsters, they're behemoths. That's the official battlefield role of them. They're probably monsters also, but they're technically called behemoths. So that basically breaks it down right here. Now, if something is a leader and a behemoth, i.e., Archaon on Mount is probably a leader and a behemoth, I would imagine. I haven't looked it up, but just off the cuff, I would say that's a thing. So it counts for both. So it's very cool that they made that distinction there as well. Now, something else that's kind of for balance, but also kind of for financial reasons, perhaps, is under strength units. Sometimes you may find that you do not have enough models to field a unit at full strength. If this is the case, then you must still pay the full cost of the unit. For example, if you decide to field a unit of 3 Liberators rather than a full strength of 5, the unit would still cost 100 points. Right? So, it is what it is. This is a game. The money pays for development of new supplements, etc., etc. But hey, don't get it twisted. This is a game. This is a business, right? At the end of the day. There's something else I wanted to show you in here, too, that was very important. So something else that I feel is really awesome for balance that they came up with. If you you can leave points in your, like, say you're filling a battle host, right, at 2,000 points. You only come to the table with 1,500 points, because guess what? You're gonna summon 500 points worth of models during the game. You don't just get to summon that stuff for free. You have to pay the points, and if you don't have all the points available, you don't get all the models that you summon in. Now, you can do abilities and things that augment units from stuff that already died, and that's freezies, but you can't go past the starting number of units. So that's very important for, I would imagine, some undead players out there, right? You know what I'm talking about, or you demon players out there. I'm one of them, but that's something important. That's called reinforcement points, and that section's all right here. And then they talk about war scrolls, where they give you all that stuff here, the battlefield size. Triumphs are a little bit different because it doesn't quite work the same way as normal Age of Sigmar. So basically, if you have a higher number of points than your opponent gets a roll on the triumphs, and they're okay. I mean, you get to reroll failed hit rolls for 1 unit in 1 combat phase, or reroll failed wound rolls for 1 unit in 1 combat phase, or reroll all failed save rolls for 1 unit in 1 combat phase. You know what I mean? So they're not game breaking, but it's still pretty cool that you're under. But remember, this stacks. If you're under because you're reinforcing, you get this too. So that's kind of neat. It's like double dipping, right? And then the other thing too I wanted to mention, monsters in cover. The save modified for being in cover does not apply to monsters. That's type, not battlefield role, like I got confused earlier. It's easy to get confused. There's so many rules out there, and I have 7 editions and 8 editions of another game in my head, and now I got an Age of Sigmar, right? So please forgive me sometimes. I am prone to misspeak. Feel free to correct me in the comments, right? So then it talks about tournaments and things like that, and house rules, and stuff like not measuring from the model itself, measuring from the base, which I technically prefer. I think it's kind of silly, but then a lot of the combat ranges, that could eschew that as well. So it's kind of shoot from the hip there. I feel like, just kind of take the temperature of your particular gaming group there. And then here is all of the battle plans for basically now matched, pitch battles for match play. And it's stuff like objectives. You could win on turn 3 if you were holding both objectives. Otherwise, it's usually just going to come down to how much stuff you kill for the majority of these, as far as I can tell. Then there's a battle report using the new play stuff that we just talked about there, the new matched scenarios. And then it gets to pitch battle profiles, which is basically the points for all the war scrolls that are out there for every model, that, as far as I can tell, I mean, I'm sure they're going to come out with more stuff, and it may have this chart in the back of their book. There might be free downloads and supplements and things like that. Who knows? But right now it's current. Fingers crossed, current right now. Boom, there it is. And then you got the index of everything right there, and so you can get to all of those models. And like I said, so they have the compendiums of the stuff that might not have a Age of Sigmar version, and then of course you got your Grand Alliances there. So that's all this stuff right here. We've seen this ad nauseum on the internet over the past couple of weeks, but you can tell it's pretty thorough and quite thorough, to be quite honest. And there's an army roster you can make, so not too bad. Oh, and then there's the allegiance abilities, which I said earlier. That's basically if you take all of one thing, like allegiance for each unit and war scroll battalion in Age of Sigmar is part of the Grand Alliance, either order, chaos, death, or destruction. Sometimes they have different things that conflict, or that overlap. So you got Stormcast Eternals or Sylvanas, right? Which because they're order Stormcast Eternals, right? If all the units in your War Scroll battalions of your army are order, for example, then it has the order allegiance, which is kind of on the line with allies, but kind of not, because it can give you the bonus. You can do it all Stormcast Eternals, or you can do it all order, right? An army with the order allegiance, sometimes known as an order army, can use potential allegiance ability rules found in the following pages. When your army qualifies for more than one allegiance, all the units are order and Stormcast Eternals, you must choose which allegiance your army will be before the game. These restrictions aside, you can use allegiance abilities whenever and wherever you play your games at Age of Sigmar. So this isn't just for pointed stuff here. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that all works. So obviously, you don't really want to. I guess there isn't technically any rules for taking. Well, I guess you can't mix them, so that would be kind of stupid. But there isn't any like, hey, you can't put chaos on the same table as death or something like that. But you definitely can't put them in the same unit. But that stuff aside, it's kind of cool little caveats that it's not quite allies, but it's not quite not allies. I guess it's kind of in the middle and not too shabby, to be quite honest. So here's your command traits table here. Now they're like, hey, you can roll a dice, or you can just pick which the personality of your particular general, which is kind of neat. That's kind of cool to see. Now you can also do this for each. I believe it's each general, or each general can do this. But I thought there was something in here where it said that if you had a war scroll, or not a war scroll, a battalion, you can do this for each battalion you field. Because remember, there's a cost for a battalion as well. One command trait from below, pick the trait that best suits. Alternatively, you can roll a dice. For any reason you must select a new general, you may immediately generate a new trait for them. Maybe that's the order. Choose a hero. Oh yeah, okay, you may additionally choose an additional hero to have an artifact for each War Scroll battalion in your army. Okay, so you only get one artifact of order unless you take a War Scroll battalion in your army. So I was getting that mixed up there. So this is general. This could be multiple heroes in your army as long as you take multiple War Scroll battalions. Remember, battalions are basically a formation, if you compare it to 40k. So there's 4 of these, chaos, destruction, death, and chaos. Order. We'll go with order as the final answer. And then, hey, guess what? The rules for playing Age of Sigmar. Oh, here they are. Boom. Rules over. And that's how simple Age of Sigmar started out as, and now we have a few more books to add to that, right? So overall, I think it's going to be pretty fun. I can't wait to get my models out on the table and try. Well, first of all, point them up, see what I got to buy, or see what it's gonna be a whole thing, but we're gonna figure it out together. We're gonna have some fun with it, and hopefully find a lot more like-minded individuals here in the near future as well to accompany me on this grand Age of Sigmar trip down memory lane here. So thanks for watching. Get to your local game store. Hopefully they have a preview copy as well for you to check out, and start pointing your stuff up and get some stuff on the table, folks.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. TheLongWar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.